Hey, Blender Bob here. I want to tell you about our sponsors for the Tiki project. Our first sponsor is Reallusion, the company I work for. They will provide us with a server, a file server, so we can host all the stuff in there, and also the Kitsu server. Kitsu is an open source tracker, so like for the shots and for the assets, so you can know where you are in your project. Obviously, for security reasons and for business reasons, we cannot use the render farm at Reallusion, but there's a solution for that. You'll see later. Biome. The easiest way to use Biome is to import this collection here in your scene. This will give you all the elements that are available. And they look very good. Let's say I want to apply the moss on the monkey. So what I can do is just create a new geo node here. And you just select the first one here. And pa-da-dam! It's that simple. And on the GeoNode modifier itself, you can see there are a bunch of settings, the amount you want to see on the viewport and the amount you want to see on the render. So if the scene is too heavy, you can reduce the viewport. And you keep going, you adjust the settings as needed. And once you render it, it looks like this. It's beautiful. Now you can get even a better quality because this uses cards. So what you want to do here is to increase the amount of transparent here. So if I put it to 30, you can see I get a much better result. There's another GeoNode modifier that comes with it, so let's try it on the plane here. So I will select the stone and wood scatter, and what it does, well, it scatters wood and stones. And again, you can play with the settings to get more or less. If I copy the modifier from the monkey to the rocks, then I will have moss on all of them, but that will also show in the plane here. You can see it's everywhere. And look at this, it's beautiful. A second way you can use it is to go into the asset browser and you have access to everything here, so you can just drag and drop anything you want. But you have to use the GeoNode modifier if you want to be able to spread the moss on the rocks. There's a third way you can use Biome, but this is with GeoScatter and you will see this later. You can find this on the Blender market. It's made by Asset Kit and you can see they have a lot of stuff here that are available. This is the one that we are talking about. And they have many props, some alien stuff. There's 3 pages of stuff that you can choose from. The next one I'm going to buy is probably going to be the trash kit. It looks really cool. Botaniq. Okay, let's start with the basic spawn asset. You can choose here spring, summer, autumn, winter, which season that you want. You have different categories that you can choose from. So if you want grass, weed, trees, flowers, whatever. And then you can click on the icon and choose which one that you want. Click on the arrow at the bottom to get even more choices. Alright, so I start with the plane and I will make it editable so I can modify it because it's a procedural tree, so I can modify it as I want. And here we go, we have a beautiful tree. Now we want this to be exactly on the ground so we can lift it and snap to ground. It's going to snap it there. There's also a button for random transformation, so if you want different trees, you just click on it and you'll get a new tree every time. There are 2 settings you can play with for randomization. One is for brightness, the other one is for hue per branches. So you can play with it and you can see I will get different colors, so you can give a more natural look to your tree. Depending on the tree, you can also change the seasons. I can go from autumn, winter, whatever. You click on the button and it's going to update it. The trees are also animated, so you can add animation. You choose what kind of animation that you want and then OK, and you press play and you will see the animation right away. You can loop the animation. That's probably for video game stuff. I don't know. And you can also convert everything to an alembic. You can make it to an alembic. And now you have all the settings for the trees. Everything that creates that tree here, you can see it here, and you can change the proportions for the animation. So if I change, for example, this branch here, I make it stronger, this branch will move more than the other ones. You can also use Botaniq to scatter plants on a plane. So I will subdivide it to have more resolution on it. Make sure that you apply the transformation. That's very important. And now we'll go to the scatter place here and I will press on the plus to decide what I want to scatter. So here I'm in the flower and you can decide what you want to do. So for ground forest, grass, whatever, you have different ones. And if you click on it, you have different kind of grass too. So I'm going to take this one with the flowers. I'm just going to click OK and here we go. Of course, everything is customizable. So you can play with the number for the emission, you can play with the scale, the randomness, the density. So you have a lot of settings that you can play with. If the scene becomes too heavy for your computer, you can always change the display. You can change it, for example, to bounding box. And for there, I will go right here and I will play here. I will change it to bound. So now I just got bounding boxes. And you have a setting for the display also. That's only for the viewport, how much you want to see on the viewport. But maybe I don't want this on the entire plane, so you can paint where you want it. So you can see I'm painting it, but now the density is too high because it was the density for the entire plane. So I clicked on recalculate density to fix that. So I'm just painting. So maybe now I don't have enough density, so I can always change the emission here. I will change it. It was at 390. Let's put it like for 2000, and you see the result. You can also change the ratio between the plants. So you have all the elements here that have been scattered, and this is like this 1, 4, 4, 3. That means they're 4 times more than the other one. So if I play with this, I can really adjust it the way I want it. So let's try it. This one here, I will set it to 0, and actually I will do it for all of them. I will put them to 0 so I can see which plant is what. So now I only got the flowers here, and I can go one by one to see which plant is what, because basic A, basic D doesn't tell me much. So you can make your own salad. But not only this, you can select each plant individually and modify them per plant. So this one here, wild A, I can change the scale on this one, and I'm only touching this plant. Just like a moss biome that we saw before, you can also go in the asset browser and you have access to all the plants that comes with Botaniq. There's a lot of them, and if you want one, you just take it and you drag it in your scene. You want rocks? Well, just go in the rocks section and pick one and drag it in. Oh, one cool thing, by the way, when I spreaded the plants, it added a shader to the ground. And you see I got this base shader there, and it's procedural, so it never repeats. These are all the assets that are available in Botaniq. Now let's go back to the scattering. If I press here on the plus, you can see I got some presets for a lot of stuff here, but I don't have any trees. So how can I do this for trees? Well, there's a way to do it. You can create your own custom setup. So I would click OK and go all the way down. And from there, I will click on the plus menu and I can select the trees that I want. So I can just go one by one and add more plants. This one, and I want this one. Okay, and then let's add another one. Let's say this one here. This one. Okay. So it's scattered everywhere, even in the water. I don't want that, so now we'll just paint where I want my trees. Change the weight a little bit. Here, make it a little bit blurry. Change the density. Okay, let's see what this looks like. Render image, and I got trees on my island. Botaniq is made by Polygoniq, so take a look at what they have on the Blender market. They have different packages that you can buy. They also offer features that I didn't have time to show. For example, the vine stuff, which is pretty cool. You just draw some stuff, you click on convert, and boom, it's going to generate some vines for you. So yeah, tons of stuff that you can see there that I didn't have time to cover. Beautiful images here. Interior plants too. And they are a big contributor to the Blender development fund. And make sure that you check the other products that they offer. They have a lot of very cool stuff in there. Terrascape. There are 3 ways you can use Terrascape. So let's start with the ground, this one here. So the first one, let's go with the easiest one. We go into the asset browser. And then you can choose which one that you want. So I got Islandscape and I got Junglescape. I got these 2 for the project. Unlike Botaniq, these are not procedurals. So you will have a few trees from the same species. Like this one here, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it keeps going on. So you see there are a bunch of trees from the same species. But they are super crazy high res. So now it's the asset browser. I will take the tree that I want and just drag it in the scene. One thing I don't like about this is that it's going to orient it on the scene, and I couldn't find a way to keep it straight. If you know how to fix that, please tell me in the comments. Now you will see on the outliner when you drag it, you get 2 versions. You get the high res and you also get the proxy. Just turn off the proxy, you don't need to see it. The way it actually works is if you select the high res and you go into the modifier, you will see you have a proxy modifier here and you can turn on and off if you want to see the low res or the high res. But even if you set it to low res, when you render it on the screen, on the viewport, it's going to look low res, but when you render the final image, it's going to be the high res. The second way to use Terrascape is to use their add-on here. So if you click here, you will see all the plants that are available. And you see some icons are wavy like this one here. Well, that means that this is an animated plant. All the plants are animated. You just need to pick the one that is wavy if you want it to move in your scene. So I would click on import asset and it's going to import all the plants that are available for this species. I will move them up and I would click on pivot and it's going to move them on the surface. You don't need to tell it what is the ground. What it does is it's just going to snap on the closest surface it finds. So if it's over another tree, it's going to snap on that tree. So if you want to avoid this, well, take the tree that's under it and make it invisible. Then you can snap it again. So select this one here, snap with the pivot, and then turn it back on. If you go in the display section, you can decide how you want to see it. So here on the viewport, I want to see the low res. If I want to render on screen, I want to see also the proxy. And for the final render, I want to see the high res. So now you see low res, and if I go into the render section, render my image, I get the high res version. There's a button that will allow you to do it on the entire scene, so you don't have to do them one by one. And poof. If the scene is still too heavy, then you can always change it. So change the display to bounding box. For the animation, you can see that I don't have access to the animation data. That's because I didn't choose the right tree here. I didn't choose the wavy one. So let me turn the collection off. This plant was a Rapis X, well, something like this. I need to find the same icon, the same name with the wavy thing instead. So where is it? It's this one here. It's the same plant here, but this one is animated. If for some reason it cannot find the animation data, you can always fix it. Here there's a button, find animation data. You click on it, and then this will give you the browser. You find where the data is, so it's in the same folder. Here you have the wind folder, and you click on find animation data, and it will relink it. And if you press play, you can see that the trees are animated. Of course, you have some settings you can play with for the wind if you want it weak or if you want it strong. And you can select a plant and modify it per plant. So I will take this one here, and you see you can go with a fastest, wind speed. So you play with the settings until you get the result that you are looking for. Play, and here we go. This one now moves more than the other ones. You also have buttons for the scale. You can randomize the scale and the rotation. That will not create a new tree though. I've been told by the Terrascape people that they are reworking the entire system, how it works. So I'm really looking forward to see how it's going to be. Terrascape is made by Terrascape, and you have a lot of different scapes you can buy. So we got the island and the jungle scape for Tiki, but they have a lot of other ones. For example, the desert scape. It looks really good. Very high quality assets. There's a third way to use Terrascape. GeoScatter. Okay, let's start with the basic. In the scatter, you need to select what you're going to scatter on. So I want to scatter on the plane, and you got some presets here. So what kind of distribution that you want. So if you see if there's a little guy, that means it's going to be at the human scale, or if you have a house, it's going to be for a wide landscape. So I'm going to pick one, let's say this one here. Then you select your objects that you want to scatter here. So I'm going to select all these, and I will click on scatter objects, and here you go. So it created a system, and the system, you can see it here. So these are all the different systems you can use if you want to spread something, and you can turn them on and off if you want. Now if you go down, you can see some options with a blue dot. If there's a blue dot, that means it's something that you can modify. So on the surface here, you can decide which emitter that you want. Distribution, if you want to play with the density, so you can reduce it. There's something very cool here called quick math. So you set a number, example here 2, and if I click here, I divide by 2. Or I can multiply by 2. So it's very fast to do some changes. And I can here, I add 2 or minus 2. You know, if I change it to 10, then I'm going to divide by 10 or multiply by 10. Then you have other settings for rotation and scale. So you can just expand that, and you can see a lot of options here that you can play with to scale and rotate your objects. Adjust as needed. Now let's try the manual scatter. I will select my object here, and I go into scatter object. And now I can paint the objects, but you can see they're all on top of each other, which is not necessarily what I want. So for this, I will go into the tools, and I will change the points per interval, because right now it's doing 50 objects on the same point, so I don't want that. So I can reduce it, and I can reduce the interval between them also when I paint, so they're more scattered apart. There are many tools. This one is pretty cool. You can just drag and select an area and paint this. You can move stuff around. You can erase stuff. Another cool thing you can do is to change this here to browser selection. So it's going to take what you selected in the asset browser, and you're going to be able to paint it. Now what I'm going to do here is go in my tool, and what I want to change is the point per interval. Right now it's at 50, that's the default thing. If I put it to 1, then I'm only going to paint one plant at a time. This way I can place them one by one where I need them. I can turn on the turbulence option, but that will just make them rock from side to side. But if I scattered plants from Terrascape that are really animated, well then in this case I will get the real animation. Okay, I will delete this system here because I want to show you something very cool. It's called Biome Scatter. So if I come here, I can select this and open a biome. A biome is a preset. Well, actually it's a bunch of presets. And you can see I get biomes from Moss Biome. the one I showed you at the beginning, you see they have a lot of presets that you can use with GeoScatter. And I also have one for Junglescape. For some reason, Islandscape doesn't have biome presets. Anyways. Okay, so I will try a jungle forest tree here. I just need to click on it and now it's importing. And you can see everything gets updated as it loads the assets. And now my ground has been flooded with this biome. And you can see that many other companies create biomes for GeoScatter. GeoScatter also comes with its own library when you buy it, so you get some grass and you get some basic stuff. On the system list, you can see all the plants that were used for this biome, and you can add plants, remove them, turn them on and off. And like we saw before, we can play with every plant individually and adjust the density and all the other parameters. Now I'm going to bring a rock from Botaniq, because I like this rock. I'll scale it up a little bit. And on this rock, I'm going to go into my biomes and select one of the moss biome. This one looks pretty cool, so we'll just click on it. It's going to load it. Now it's everywhere on the plant. And now you have tons of settings that you can play with. For example, the orientation. So you can just adjust with this little sphere here where you want the plant. So this way it's going to be only on top. You don't have to do them all one by one like I'm doing right now. You can alt-click and it will apply it to all the selected ones. I just didn't know that at the time of recording this clip. Okay, bang, bang, bang. Now, I thought I did them all, but looks like I didn't. Well, the reason for this is because I forgot to turn on orientation. So now I got my plants only on the top of the rock. You could also make it according to the elevation or the slope of your geometry of your ground. And there are so many settings that you can play with. Look at this. Okay, now let's try on the island. I'm going to select a bunch of plants. And I'm going to scatter them. I'm going to use this preset here and scatter assets. So my island has been flooded with trees and at this point it's so heavy it's unmanageable, even if the display is set up to bounding boxes. So what I'm going to do is divide by 10 the amount of geometry there. It's completely jammed. Okay, here we go. And maybe do it a second time. And then I will set up where I want the plants according to the slope or the elevation or whatever. And then I can crank up the density back. I prefer to use the altitude instead of percentage. I can say from 1 meter to, let's say, I don't know, 40 something meters, 50, 70. And then I can go back with the density and it's going to be manageable. Maybe I can give it a little bit more. So I will double the density here. A few more adjustments. That looks good. Okay, render time. And I got an island with trees. There are so many tools in GeoScatter that I cannot go through all of them. It would be insane. But everything is very well documented, so you can go there and see all the options that are available. You will see it's an amazing piece of software. So by combining Moss Biome, Botaniq, and Terrascape and using GeoScatter, I've been able to create this in about 20 minutes. Embergen. Yes, we got a sponsorship from Embergen. Embergen does fire and smoke in real time, and it's mind-blowing. No, it's not Blender. Tiki is not a Blender Foundation project. I'm not limited to only use Blender. I can use whatever I want to. So we talked about it with the VFX team and we've decided to use Embergen to do all our smoke and fire stuff because there's a lot of them and I don't think there's any way we could do this in Blender. Not at this point anyway. See it this way, it's like if you want to do textures, well you can do some basic stuff in Blender, but you might as well use Substance or Mari or something like this to get a much better result because Blender is just not there for texturing. I'm sure it will come one day, I mean Blender evolves so fast, but at this point, no, we need to use other tools, so we go for Embergen. Look at this stuff, wow. Okay, so now I got plants and I can make crazy sets and all this stuff, but hey, I need to render that stuff. And the plants are super crazy heavy, lots of textures. How am I going to do this? Well, this is how. We got a huge sponsorship from GarageFarm.net. We had some discussions, we made some render tests, we evaluated how much rendering we will need to render the entire movie and all this stuff. And they offered us enough credits to render 70% of the entire film. 70%, that's amazing. Thank you so much. There are many simple shots on the Tiki movie that will not require a render farm, so we should be able to just render them locally, so we are covered for the rendering for the entire movie. And guess what? Blender users get a 33% rebate when you go to GarageFarm.net. 33% because you are a Blender user. And that's it for the sponsoring on the software side. Now on the hardware side, that's another thing. I will need some help from Nvidia and AMD because I will need to set up a crazy machine because I need to manage all that stuff. There are very, very crazy heavy scenes. And also the FX people, they don't all have, insane machines at home to do this. So the idea is to set up this insane beast and they could connect remotely on that machine and do their sims and all that stuff. So AMD, Nvidia, you're gonna hear from me. All right, bye.